views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
Hello and welcome to Open 2.0. I'm your host, Lacey Dominguez. Our guest today is an artist and director based in New York City. His sculptures and paintings often show surrealist wonderlands that are occupied by familiar characters with a twist. Please welcome to the show, Jim McKenzie. Welcome to 2.0.
Thank you.
I want to start about telling me about your origins. So tell me a little bit about yourself. What motivated you to become an artist?
I'm inspired by like music and feelings and stuff like that. But as for motivation, there's nothing too particular that's like motivating me to be an artist. I feel like I've just been an artist my entire life. Not to sound cliche, but and I think like when you're an artist, I'm trying to speak for like multiple artists that it's just something that's in your blood. I feel like, and it's just kind of like I compare it to breathing. Like if you're not breathing, then you're gonna freak out. So if I'm not creating something, I'll kind of like be like, oh, I have to get back to my studio and start making something. So I think that's just my main motivation, where it's just like something that's driving, that just says you have to just keep going.
Yeah, we were talking a little off air how like kind of 3 years ago you kind of like decided to start like sculpting more, like creating different characters. How did that process begin?
I mean, I've been doing like paintings and stuff like that, and my main job is commercial work. So as kind of a rebellion for doing like stuff with a group team, I want to do stuff mainly by myself. So that sparked the paintings, and from there, an artist named Chet Zar asked me to be in his group sculptural show at Copperell Gallery. It's called Conjoined 4, and I really did not know how to sculpt, so I said yes to the show, and I kind of just forced myself to learn how to sculpt during that process. And I made this dog, which was my dog out of clay. And people seem to like it. I thought it was alright.
It's a pretty detailed sculpture. So I can see like you're really focused into like the details of like a.
Yeah. I wanted it to really look like.
Yeah, realistic. It's very realistic for it to be like kind of surreal, I guess. You mentioned before that you got inspired by music. Is there any musician or other type of artist that motivated you?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I really like the artist Nick Drake, and the trailer for my show Lost Magic was inspired by one of his songs, Made to Love Magic. And I feel like it's just a theme where it's just very like dreary, like kind of depressing, where you know, you have all this magic as a child and then you lose it as an adult. And that's another theme that I connect with. Not for me, I mean, I'm full of magic.
In general, like sometimes you feel like you look back and when you were little and you see nowadays where you are as an adult and you're like, I think I lost all my innocence. What happened in the way?
Yeah.
Okay. How do you determine what your next piece is going to look like?
I mean, that comes from like just kind of drawing out different sketches. I mean, I want to start off with like an idea that I really am behind. Otherwise, I'm just making something for like the hell of it. So I'll have an idea, I'll sketch it out like on the train or something. Then I'll work it up in Photoshop. You have a stylus and a Wacom tablet, and you just kind of draw right into the computer. And once I have like the basic idea, I'll start sculpting right away. And it's a back and forth, you know, you're sketching, you're sculpting, and you're kind of taking pictures of it, throwing it into Photoshop, tweaking it a little bit. And eventually you'll have something that's a finished sculpture. So once the sculpt is done, I'll shoot that again, bring it into Photoshop, and then do like different color tests. So the piece right here is a raccoonicorn. And at first he was gonna be blue, he was gonna be purple. And I made a bunch of different variations of him until I landed on pink. And you know, you just kind of go back and forth with like sketching and making it. I actually painted his wings 5 different times until it was just right. I was like, no, it's too pink, it's too purple, and then finally it kind of had this nice gradient to it.
So it wasn't like there's like a one idea and you go straight up with that?
Sometimes there is. I mean, it's good to have like a main idea and then just aim for it.
Yeah, of course.
But then always you're gonna like find different things that are
it kind of always changed in the way. Yeah. So what exactly is, when you do like specific like piece or like let's say a collection even, what do you try to express? for most of the time?
I think all pieces that I make are different because they're all kind of based off of my emotions. So sometimes I'm feeling, blissfully joyful, and I'll make something that's like overly, happy. There's rainbows everywhere, and then other times there's like hints of sadness in there. So it just all depends. They all vary, but I want them to feel kind of consistent, where it's like it's a world. Like you look at it as a whole, and you'll kind of understand.
Of course.
But I think overall, probably I want people to feel happy.
Of course. That's sometimes the overall feeling someone wants to depict. So you mentioned that not only you're an artist, you also do commercial work, and you're a professor at the School of Visual Arts and a director, animator, and even designer for Arm and Nathan Love Studios. Tell me a little bit about that. How's that experience with all of that?
It's good. It's crazy to balance all of these things at once, because a lot of people just know me for sculptures and paintings, and then I tell them that I only do sculptures on Saturdays and Sundays, pretty much, and they're like, I thought that was your main job. Like, what's going on?
Even I thought that was your main job.
Yeah. So I'm at Art and Nathan Love, which is a studio in Soho, and we specialize in like character animation and stuff like that. And I direct commercials there, design, animate, and I pretty much do everything. Like I was editing a commercial, a live action thing last week, and just kind of like odd jobs, but it's really fun. And I think that also translates over to fine art, because I'm kind of working on projects with groups of people, and you get the critiques from people that you wouldn't have done yourself. And then you go back home, you start working on like a sculpture, and then you start to kind of cut yourself into like other people, like you have yourself critiquing yourself. So it works out.
I mean, I've always heard that you are your own critic in a way. No matter how many things people tell you, at the end of the day, it's like what you think of your art that makes it like
I hate it.
You hate it?
I mean, you're never really going to be like 100% pleased with yourself.
Like people are like, I could say like, oh my God, that's amazing. Then you're gonna be like, I could have done a little better. That's true. Like I just find myself with that. So you like, it's like kind of difficult to like balance all these other jobs, but like trying to create. Do you have any problems with deadlines and stuff like that? Yeah,
deadlines are always an issue, because
I'm assuming especially for gallery work and like things that you have to submit and everything.
My first show, Lost Magic, was for Copro Gallery, and they gave me 2 years to put it together. And it sounded like a long time. It was like, 2 years.
To me, I thought that came out like in 6 months. Like, it's already, let's
Technically, it kind of did, because it was just made during weekends, and I get home at like 9 o'clock at night, so it's like from 9 to 12 I'll be working on that, and then just weekends.
2-year process. So now that we're talking about Lost Magic, let's tell me like a little like of the highlights of like the opening night and all that happened.
It was very rewarding and just like a breath of fresh air, because it was 2 years of like, oh my God, I'm not going to make this. I'm going to make every single night. I was like having nightmares, like I'm not going to make this deadline. These pieces are terrible. Nothing makes sense. Like, am I really conveying what I want to convey? And then I did it, and then people actually liked it, and I was like, oh my God, it worked. Okay,
so
great.
There was like a lot of people at the gallery talking to
people
you.
showed up, and people were like, oh, I really like your stuff. And it was like the first time I really kind of got that from people. So it was interesting.
Okay. So let's go now to the actual artwork. Let's see some of the images, and let's talk a little about them. So the first piece that we have is The Scarecrow, which you told me was like your most famous one. That's the first one I saw of you, and it's my absolute favorite. Tell me a little bit about what inspired this piece.
That piece, I mean, there's a little bit of me in all of my pieces, but for that one, it was kind of a weird moment where I was just feeling like very like, literal sense, tied up in life. And I was just on the train just kind of sketching out characters, and then I sketched this one out. And I was like, oh, that's really cool. I was kind of connected with scarecrows, as weird as that sounds. And I even modeled some of his clothing after mine, like my shoes and socks. Or his. So it's a little bit of me, but it's also his own character. And he doesn't look like ordinary scarecrows. He's more human-like, but he doesn't really fit in. So it's like he's trying to do this job that he's not really made to be doing.
You can see it in his eyes.
Yeah.
He just doesn't know how to be a
And there's a crow. You're supposed to scare it away. What's he doing?
Yeah,
he's terrible.
Like standing there.
Yeah.
So the next piece we have is The Nest, which I found really interesting because it looks like a mold of yourself, basically, of half of your head. Tell me a little bit about this one.
That one was just another I mean, that's a literal self-portrait right there.
Yeah, of course.
And I think I really connected to that one mostly out of all the pieces.
I bet mostly because it was basically you.
Because it was me. So, yeah, I really liked it. And I mean, it came from like a weird place where I just kind of felt like, again, I was just drowning in myself. And
Yeah.
as you can see, I'm drowning in my own hair. It's made of gold. And there's a lot of like symbolism in there that only I could really understand. Like,
Yeah.
I'm the third generation, so it's the three, and then you have like crows that are being born out of my head, but they're also dead, and just a lot of funky stuff.
Oh yeah.
And I like that one.
The next
most.
one we have is the Puggle Pillar, which is
Puggle Pillar, yeah.
it's amazing. It's hilarious. And in the picture that I have right here,
Yeah,
you're
there
in
we
it.
are. We're out in the park.
Out
That
of
was
a
a good one.
calendar.
Yeah.
Talk to me about the piece.
I actually did not know how I was going to be doing this, and I just kind of just went with it. I'm like,
Yeah.
I want to make a giant caterpillar out of my dog. I think it'd be hilarious. And I just started getting tubes. My boss made this robot with like tube arms, and I was like, can I borrow those tubes? And he's like, yeah, sure. So I have these like big tubes. I'm throwing garbage in there and throwing cement on and trying to figure it out. And then eventually I just made it.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, wow, okay, it's done. We took it to the park. I shot this shot with my friend, and some little woman was like walking by and was like, oh, that poor dog, what's he in that costume for? She thought it was a real dog. And then it sold
like,
at the
"No,
gallery.
no."
Yeah.
It's great. Now, before we go to the latest piece, let's talk about your upcoming exhibit and what's that going to be all about.
The next exhibit is a group show. So it's at Arch Enemy Arts in Philadelphia. And I have one piece in there. It's called Imaginary Menagerie 4, the 4th edition. And it's about mythical creatures, kind of cryptic zoology, where you have these like crazy, you know. Mine's called, what is mine called? Welcome to the Underworld.
Welcome to the
Yes,
Underworld.
forgot
So
the name of
let's see that piece now.
Let's see it.
So we can talk a little about that.
There it is.
Really,
It's a dog again.
It's the dog again. It's
Yeah.
a recurring theme. I can see that. Is the heart made of like amethyst? Is
Yes,
that what it's
yeah,
called?
yeah.
It's really quite interesting. So this is gonna be the piece that's gonna be featured on the actual gallery then.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Let's go a little bit more deeper. Like, where do you see your career in the future going?
I see it. I still want to keep doing sculptures and making paintings and stuff like that. But I do see more films and directing at a higher level. So possibly stop motion features, stuff like that. Right now, I'm currently working on a script for The Scarecrow.
I was gonna ask you, is there gonna be a short film for the Scarecrow? Because
there's gonna be a long film for The Scarecrow.
long
Hopefully,
film.
we're
I would
working on
love
it.
to see that.
Yeah.
And what advice can you give to future artists and sculptors that want to, be part of this field?
I would say just jump right into it. Don't be afraid. I know there's a lot of people that look down on artists. You say you want to be an artist, and people say, "Oh, well, what's your day job?" and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So,
are you gonna have a backup? Are you gonna?
yeah,
do something
yeah.
else?
There's so much discouragement that goes into it,
Yeah.
and people. They're gonna have their friends aren't gonna know what they're talking about. Their parents aren't gonna understand that they want to be an artist. But you just have to just jump right into it. And I mean, when I started off, there was people that like I admired, like different artists, and I know that you really put people you admire on like a higher pedestal.
Of course.
And it's very important to eliminate those pedestals, chop them down, put your own pedestal higher, and realize that hierarchies aren't really a thing. Because when you're an aspiring artist, you put the word aspiring there, and it kind of separates you from actual artists. But if you're an aspiring artist, no matter what level of art you're at, skill level, no matter how old you are, if you're 60 or 16 years old, it doesn't matter. If you're an aspiring artist, you're an artist. And you just have to realize that. And once you do that, just start going and work as hard as you can.
Terrific. One last question. Where can people contact you? Like, you're in contact?
Nowhere. You cannot contact me.
Oh, wow.
I'm so sorry.
Disappointing.
Yeah. You can go to my website. It's jimmckenzie.net and send us an email. We'll write back to you.
Terrific.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming joining
Thank
us
you.
on set today. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have for today. We'll see you next time right here on Open 2.0.